All right, guys, welcome to the More with Michael podcast. Honored to have the opportunity to sit down with Ryan Amoils today, founder of MX Locker. He and I are the alumni of the same high school, although we were a few years apart through our mutual interest in soccer and kind of some mutual friends. Got connected and here to share his story. So welcome, Ryan.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Michael. It's great to be connected beyond the soccer field. So excited to dive in.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like I kind of told you off camera before, I never would have thought that we'd had the opportunity to kind of get together and sit down. And so I think being able to keep growing that, friendship and relationship and learn about your story and, kind of always knew who you were. And like I said, had mutual friends. Obviously, Ethan is, kind of involved a little bit in your company and at the start at least. And, he and I were in the same grade and a good buddy of mine. So, yeah, let's dive straight in. Take me back to the beginning days of MX Locker and what that looked like.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, Ethan's cousin of mine, like a brother to me. So he's actually the one who thought of the MX Soccer name. Believe it or not, we were sitting on the couch in his house, and we're like, "What do we like name this company?" And he's like, "Locker, your school locker." And he's like, "MX Locker." I'm like, "That sounds pretty good." So yeah, I mean, the first thing we always do for a company is like, "Hey, is this domain available?" It actually wasn't. MX Soccer was taken, but mxlockers.com was available. So we actually bought that domain and actually ran MX Locker as mxlockers.com for like 3 years or 2 years. And then a good like family friend of ours is like, hey, you could buy mxsoccer.com for like $3,000. And at the time, it was like, hey, like this is a lot of money. And he's like, okay, but how many customers would rather go to mxsoccer.com versus MX Lockers? So yeah, I was taking like that initial bite to buy that domain, which was pretty funny. But yeah, been a long journey. Grew up, like I told you, buying and selling sneakers. That was like my first exposure to e-commerce, the internet. I was always fascinated by you could reach like thousands of customers on the internet now. Like our generation has been exposed to it. Like we saw the uprise from flip phones to mobile phones to social media to the early days of Facebook, and was always fascinated by that. So being in the sneaker game in the early days before StockX, Grailed were a thing, got exposed to PayPal, got exposed to eBay, was selling sneakers like crazy. Had every sneaker you could probably think of before like Yeezys were a thing. I remember buying my first pair of Yeezys for like $300, and everyone's like, "What are you doing?" If I could buy that same deal today, like I'd be making a lot of money. Um, but yeah, all started with that. Got exposed to like getting scammed on Western Union. Realized how like difficult it was to buy and sell online. There was eBay, but eBay was just a poor experience because we had these Facebook groups for sneaker games or like the sneaker world saying, hey, if you're into sneakers, like here are three specific groups. Here are all sneakerheads who enjoy, buying and selling within each other. It's a community behind an e-commerce trend. And what grew from that was like Goat, StockX, Grailed, which are now massive companies. And eBay kind of got left behind and not like focusing on that consumer segment. So we've kind of seen all these like fascinating marketplaces arise out of consumer like segments that were all born out of either Craigslist groups, Facebook groups. If you look at like, there's a famous photo of Craigslist, and they like take, hey, here's like everything that's born out of Craigslist, and they just did it better with a better customer experience. One of the best examples of that is Airbnb. So yeah, short story. My dad grew up riding dirt bikes. Started riding in high school beyond the soccer field. Like I'd always find myself at the track. Never realized how expensive the sport was. Went to college and was begging my dad, "Hey, can you please like let me ride? Like I'm in the at Gainesville. I went to University of Florida, and all I wanted to do was like ride dirt bikes. Like that was my passion." And when he let me bring my bike up, he wasn't paying for everything anymore, and kind of realized how expensive the sport was. A pair of boots now is like $800, and you want to buy that top pair of boots because that's the most protection you'll have. So I quickly kind of took my like learnings from the sneaker game and said, hey, can we apply this to the dirt bike market? This sport's expensive. I'm sure there's other people out there who wouldn't mind buying a used pair for $400, $300. So what I realized was a lot of the top pros in our sport got sponsored by, say, Adidas or Nike, and they were getting a lot of free product, but not any money. So I went to them saying, "Hey, I'll buy your gear in bulk. Let me flip this gear, and let me see if other people in the market are keen to buy used gear." So believe it or not, like they were. I started an Instagram page. Basically, to growth hack it was like, "Hey, I have an Instagram page. I have products. How do I get users to look at these products?" So I went to like the most popular Instagram pages of dirt bike riding. Whenever they posted a post, I would like follow like 1,000 people. And, in those days, you'd be like, "Hey, if someone followed me on Instagram, I'll definitely come look at like this Instagram page." So that was like the early days of MX Soccer. I was basically posting items for sale on our Instagram page. People would DM us and say, "Hey, I'm interested in this product." And then I would send them a PayPal invoice. They would pay. I'd ship it out to them. And then created like a Wix website, which we built ourselves senior year of college. And that was like slowly early days of MX Soccer and early days of like adoption in terms of like buying used gear for the dirt bike market.
Yeah, what a story, man. And where do you think you found that sense of entrepreneurship, like even from the start of the sneakers, right? Like you kind of, it seems like you had that knack to go create something, you found a need within the market, and you seemed like you really wanted to go fill that. Where do you think that came from?
Yeah, it's kind of tough. I've always been fascinated, in today's day, like even at our company, I love doing like product and like UX, UI, and like building that like customer experience. I always just had a drive for entrepreneurship, like creating things, like being creative. Was always like fascinated by these like forward moving companies and what they were doing, like thinking in the future rather than in the present. I don't know. Like everyone always asks me, but it's kind of like a natural tick of mine. I did a lot of the entrepreneurship, challenges in high school with Miss Davis and her class, and did the Miami Herald business competition, did the South Florida business competition. So it's always been, and I never looked at that like, hey, that's work or classwork. I said, hey, this is like a fun thing.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's kind of tough to pinpoint like exactly like, hey, like what drives this. It's more like I would say a natural tick of mine to create and sew online and do these types of things.
Yeah, and it seems like you had the framework to help foster that growth in high school, going into college, and what did UF do, or did you study entrepreneurship? Did you have options to keep developing the business there? Kind of how did that experience look for the development of the company and yourself?
Yeah, believe it or not, I would say UF honestly didn't help me because most of the classes were online. I went to some professors to ask for help, and none of them like would actually help me. I would say my education from high school was actually a better foster of this. If anything, UF and the classwork that I was given deterred me to start my business because I said, hey, I'm learning more in the real world doing marketing. I got a marketing degree and I'm learning about SEO. I'm learning about Facebook ads. I'm learning about Google ads. I don't need to study like marketing mix or these like random vocab words that they had us memorize for a written exam. It's like I'm creating an Instagram. I'm figuring out how to get customers to my website. We're transacting online. I'm learning more here than I am in the classroom. I would say high school, like Miss Davis's class, was definitely the most useful uh, business, skills I definitely like got. I just actually judged the competition for her at her new school in Naples like 2 months ago, and it was just after we just raised another round of fundraising, and I told the students, I'm like, what you guys are doing right now is exactly what I just did in the real world. Going to San Francisco, going to New York, like sitting in VC meetings, and like trying to pitch our business. Like, why should you give us money versus any other company? And why are we going to take this business from one to two now? Being that we have customers, like here's our vision. We just need capital for the growth of it and hiring of people to execute on certain ideas. So it was definitely like that framework helped way more in the real world. That business expertise and doing pitches and learning how to do a business plan and just think outside the box than I did get from college per se. So yeah, got a marketing degree from the University of Florida, but everyone always asked me. I said, we're in different like ad groups and SEO and all this every day of our business, and none of that came across, at UF, which is
Yeah.
kind of fascinating. Like SEO is like one of the biggest things for us, which drives it's search engine optimization. So in Google, like if you type in dirt bikes for sale, like how do we rank to the top for that? And that's like it's not necessarily marketing. Some of it's technical and like computer engineering, but beyond that, it's like we're doing Facebook, ads, and like how do you build campaigns, and how do you see if stuff's converting, and how do you work with influencers? I think also it's kind of tough to these universities because it was such a new era of social media where a lot of the professors that you had classes with were never exposed to this.
So that would
Where
have been 2016, right? Your first year there.
Yeah, 2016 and then graduated 2019.
Nice.
So it was kind of that new wave of, how do you work with influencers? How do you price them? Like influencers are probably one of the best drives of like customers to our channel at the moment, and it's the best ROI for us. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to bat down UF. Like I had a great experience, but in terms of education, like I just think it was such a new era of advertising and Facebook ads and Google ads that like the professors we had would have to be like our age in a way, or just be involved with it so heavily to like teach students that. So
I think it's super interesting because you're seeing a lot of kids nowadays coming out of high school realizing that, hey, I don't really need college, whether
yeah,
it's going to work a blue collar job or, whether it's going to run TikTok advertisements or,
yeah,
really anything, whether it's e-commerce, Amazon FBA, like you're really seeing the setup
yeah,
outside the typical college realm, which is unique. And I actually, at my university, I went to Nova Southeastern and
uh-huh,
I actually studied entrepreneurship and venture creation as minors,
yeah,
and the program I was in, they forced us, right? It was part of the program.
yeah, yeah,
We actually had to open up an on-campus business in our last year there. And
wow,
so I did like a burger shop, guys did tutoring services, clothing brands, also like
hmm,
anything you can imagine, basically
yeah,
you did it, right? And it was kind of a hold your hand, you didn't have to pay rent, you didn't have employees, none of that. But you had to pitch, you had to learn, you had to kind of go through the same process like you were saying. And then
yeah,
actually when we finished our masters there, we were guaranteed X amount in seed funding and to go
uh-huh,
start our own company. So to be able to then go develop and same process, right? Business pitch, literally pitch in front of a panel like you're in Shark Tank,
yeah,
like
yeah,
so
yeah,
so it was unique because again, like you don't really expect that coming from a college, but yet I think there are some unique programs and schools that do offer those opportunities that you can actually because what I learned there at school has helped set me up, in my own life, right? And really, like you said,
for sure.
you get that real world experience that you can then find applicable to what you're learning in your own business after.
For sure. Look, I think there's some universities that have like great curriculums. Like a lot of my friends went to Babson, and I think like as well at some of these universities, it's like the connections you make.
For sure.
Um, in today's day and age, like I think a degree does get you like certain places, and you need one behind you. But I think it'll be interesting to see where education goes and like what exactly is going to be neat. Like Elon Musk has a very like fond, you know, opinion on it, saying, "Hey, you don't need a college education. Like, just show me what you're capable of doing."
Yeah.
Because like we just hired an engineer. I think he's 18 years old. He just graduated high school. Like, he's better than a lot of the engineers we've hired who have like crazy education, and it's more finding these kids who are very hacky and like creative and problem solvers versus like, hey, I could go sit in a classroom, take a test, and follow this curriculum. I think, you know, different students like certain things and like need certain things to learn. Um, and every industry you go in obviously has certain requirements, right? I think in today's day, like computer engineering and marketing, a lot of the stuff you could learn on your own. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see like where it goes over time.
No, I think it's certainly unique the different pathways that anyone and everyone it seems to be taking. Like some people go kind of your typical route, but even you see people right, they're like, why am I going to go spend $500,000 for a 4 or 5 year education when I could spend? I mean, think what 4 or 5 years does for your business, right? And imagine
Exactly.
you start that and you see what you're able to return on your investments, in the real world, and then you come out, 22,
Yeah.
23, debt free, and you got money coming in the bank, which is really all you can ask for.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, look, I always like wanted to drop out and start MX soccer like a year, 2 years early.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it was a lot of like timing things for us that fell into like our pocket or like in my pocket where I had to do product discovery and college gave me that like time to do product discovery while getting a degree, just in case it didn't work. Like I have a degree to fall back on. And then being able to like fully focus right after college on like building a marketplace, getting it to a certain point, learning on that like scrappy, like super scrappy marketplace where I was just manually paying sellers out for their sales to then, with Andrew, my co-founder, allowing him to go work at a tech company for a year and a half, 2 years, where he learned certain things where when he joined me, he was able to take that risk to be like, hey, I just earned a salary from this company. I learned certain things. I want to join a startup and like, hey, we could go build this now. And I took the learnings, from that scrappy marketplace and, applied it to like the product we have today.
I think it's great using kind of what you're given, right? And being able to kind of make the most out, play the card you dealt type of mindset.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
where did you meet Andrew? Was it from college, from Miami, high school? How did you connect with him?
Yeah, so Andrew and we both were in the same fraternity at University of Florida. Believe it or not, he's from Miami, went to Gulliver. So we actually didn't know each other in Miami. We met at college. And Andrew was like the only person I knew who knew computers and like computer engineering. And when I had like our initial MX Soccer website in senior year of college, whenever I needed stuff, I would hit up Andrew to like work on it. And he would be like, yeah, no worries. Like it was very cheap because he was in college. Like extra cash for him was extra cash. And then as the company started growing, like I had someone on Upwork build our like super scrappy marketplace that got the job done. And then I needed like a more advanced level of computer engineering on it. So I'd hit up Andrew while he was working on his other job. Um, and then when MX Soccer started to scale, I'm like, hey, like I need to build a full on marketplace, like mobile app. And, because like we got to a point where like users liked our experience or like liked what we were building, but they're like, hey, I could just go to eBay. Why am I going to come to you guys? Like they have a mobile app, they have more customers. And yeah, it was kind of crazy how we convinced sellers to come onto our platform. And then, yeah, I convinced Andrew. I didn't even know I was going to pay Andrew. I said, hey, like, I'll pay you a salary for the first year. Um, and yeah, he kind of took the risk with me, and we sat down for like 3 months straight from February until May every day. And we built a full on marketplace website and mobile app and launched, yeah, in May of 21, which was pretty cool. So he thought we were just building a normal e-commerce website. And then he's like he thought he could get it done in 2 months or a month, and then he like realized, hey, like this is sellers, buyers. You're like building like a website within a website for these sellers, so it's super complicated. But at the end of the day, like thank God I had that experience from the first marketplace that we had because I had like that knowledge on like what to build and like what was needed and what problems that customers were already having that we could improve on. So definitely definitely good having like an MVP out there and getting like feedback from customers.
From Instagram DMs to a full-on
Yeah,
marketplace. What a journey.
yeah. No, for sure. And like always looking back at it, like some days, like you're like, I can't believe I like did this. I'm like, this is, and it's still like not even at like it is at scale, but it's not at scale. Like there's just so much more to build.
Yeah. And with that marketplace, is that something, excuse the ignorance, because I genuinely have no idea. Does he code that website all himself? Do you use something like a Wix or Squarespace and then, or a Shopify to create e-commerce? Like, how does the actual foundation of the website look?
No, it's built ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's built like with certain programs, like databases behind it. But when we started, it was a blank sheet of white paper essentially, and it's like,
Yeah.
this is where we're starting. um, so yeah, Andrew built it all himself, and obviously we've had more engineers on top of it. But yeah, it was pretty crazy to like what we built and some of the stuff we did in terms of like shipping product, having it go live for the first time with like thousands of customers.
Yeah.
And yeah, like our whole motto is like ship fast, break things and just reiterate. Like we don't have time to like review product so much. I mean, to now we have testers, and like before we put stuff out, like it will go through a QA test. Um, but back then it was just ship product, get customer feedback, fix it, iterate and move quickly. So
That's like I think that's the beauty of entrepreneurship is you can go from that blank piece of white paper to then a full-fledged, operating
yeah,
business.
yeah. So it's definitely cool. Like that's my favorite thing to do right now is like product design and like build out these like flows for customers, and like we see it before we like put it into customers hand, like so. And then also just now having data behind it, right? So like when we do launch something new, like how is it impacting like customers and is it helping? So like an example of that we just listed, like smart pricing. So essentially if you list a product,
Yeah.
you could have like your product automatically drop in price, and with that it increases your chance of selling your item by over 20% now. So you as a customer, you're looking at an item, oh, hey, this item dropped in price, like you're getting a notification for that. So like we had that, in our product roadmap like 3 months ago, and we just launched it like a month ago. So going through that, testing it, understanding like, hey, what's the impact it's going to have, and now seeing that impact, it's really cool. So yeah, no, it's always fun like building and seeing stuff before we kind of release it to the public.
Yeah, that whole, I mean, I guess that's more of an algorithm than AI, but kind of that automation within the system to be able to pick up on pricing trends and, what's right.
Yeah.
Like that's complicated stuff, it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah, no,
easy.
it's definitely complicated. Yeah, and it's just funny to see like how a startup works. Like
Yeah.
Jack, who's our other engineer who focuses on like web development, he came from UKG, which is like very big company. They only shipped, I think, new product once every quarter. Where he got like when we were first releasing new features, he's like, I don't want to like release anything, like he was scared of shipping because he's like, it has bugs, it has bugs. I'm like, yeah, let's just ship. Like we're a small company, like we're still a startup. Like
Yeah.
ship product, we'll get feedback, and you can fix it pretty quickly. So yeah, now like his whole mindset has changed, and he loves it because for our developers, it's like they're building something, and like we have 200,000 people using it on a monthly basis. So
Wow.
it's very cool for them to see it.
And do you find those users, are they more individuals like, myself or yourself, or is it companies, like maybe wholesalers and or shops across the country? Like where do you find most of your customer base at?
Yeah, so it's a mix of both. So essentially, we're a marketplace where users can buy and sell and transact online. So we're an eBay for the power sports business. 20% of our audience or like seller demographic is dealerships and sellers, like just for a living. So essentially, what I was doing in college, they're just doing it at a bigger scale, and some of them are doing like multi six figures in sales on our platform a year, which is really cool to see. Um,
And
so
sorry,
and
and
then
sorry, are they doing resale, or are they just selling like the products they have at full price? Like,
they're doing resale. So like of our 20% like demographic of these big sellers, it's like it's broken down to like these chop shops. So a lot of guys will buy bikes, take them apart, sell the parts on our platform. Another portion of it is like imagine if you're in soccer, you had a connection to Inter Miami or Miami FC and said, hey, at the end of the 22 season, let me just buy all the gear in bulk and I'll flip it on the marketplace. So guys do that on our marketplace as well. And then another bucket of it is essentially like these dealerships, these brick and mortar stores across the country that don't have online websites and are using us as like their e-commerce store to reach new customers, to reach a new demographic of users. Because a lot of people aren't walking into like, a dealership in South Carolina anymore. They just want to buy it online. So that's like 20% of our demographic in terms of like seller side, portfolio. And then the other bulk of it, 80%, is peer to peer. So a user like yourself, I ride, I have 4 pairs of boots. Hey, I'm just going to sell, 2 items this month. So yeah, it's definitely interesting to see the trend. But it's awesome just like as well partnering with these big time sellers to like power their business, build tools for them to succeed, and for them to do like over 6 figures on our site a year. It's definitely like very cool to see.
Yeah, I guess it's more on the personal side of things. Like, how do you find giving those opportunities to clients, customers, to even your engineers. Like, I think that's a cool thing with entrepreneurship is being able to change people's lives. Like how have you felt on
Yeah.
that side of things?
It's definitely cool. Like I lay low a lot in the industry, and like just recently, I've been going to like Marietta, which is like the hot spot for dirt bike riding, and it's always just like very cool to see to like walk around and people are like, hey, like he's the owner of MX Soccer, and people will come up to me and like, dude, I love your platform. Like I've sold so many things, I made so much money on it. So it's definitely so humbling to like hear that and see that and like just get that feedback. So but yeah, on a day to day basis, like we're talking to our big time sellers, getting feedback from them, and like at the end of the day, like they're driving like our product growth and like what products we actually build.
Yeah, I think that's super cool being able to, really like, right, you're the face of it, even though you try to stay low, but there's a face behind the company, and you can
Yeah,
talk and
exactly.
really learn about the personality. It's not just some corporate company that is just trying to profit. Like, this is born out of the passion of what you have for motorsports, and then being able
Yeah,
to tie that passion to customer relationships and that dynamic.
yeah, definitely. And it's like always fascinating to see because like people in the industry are like, how did you get into dirt bikes being from Miami, where like it's not very
Yeah,
popular. Because a lot of people are in the sport are usually like born around it or like get into it because they know people in the industry. It's very rare for like a random kid in Miami to like now be fully in the sport. Like Andrew didn't know what a dirt bike was before he joined the company. So
yeah. And for those who
it's
don't know Miami, there's not a lot of dirt bike tracks, if any.
yeah. There's one local track which is actually packed on the weekends. But Florida is actually becoming like more of a hub for the sport because a lot of the pro riders actually have like private facilities in like the Orlando area. So
I'm gonna say Central Florida is probably the perfect like breeding ground for tracks and
yeah, Central Florida has become the hub now for a lot of these training facilities because they could cycle. They have private like land for tracks where it's not being like you're not on a track with a lot of like amateurs or
yeah.
like rookies. Um, so yeah, it's definitely become the hub. Other than California, it's becoming the hub for dirt bike riding.
Where's the track in Miami?
It's off Chrome Avenue, so like on the way to the Keys, kind of like near Weston.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
And
it's
you mean Kendall?
say that again.
You mean near Kendall? Because Weston's north.
Yeah, no, it's near Weston. So it's like heading towards Chrome Avenue, down
Okay,
towards the Keys there.
gotcha.
So off of 27.
Okay, nice. And
Yeah.
you say it gets pretty packed.
Yeah, I mean, believe it or not, on the weekend, there's like 100, 150 people there uh,
Jeez.
on a Saturday or Sunday. So it's definitely packed. The next closest track is like 2.5 hours away. So it's pretty far.
Yeah. Well, it's just crazy that even in a city like Miami where you don't expect it, there is that demand for it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And were you able to pick up on that demand, like even at a young age as it was coming through? Like, did you realize how big the sport was, or was it still kind of early stages, like when you were getting into it?
I mean, the sport, like, it was definitely like huge in like '06, like before the economic crisis. I think that put a lot of people out the sport because it's such a intensive, like, hey, you're spending a lot of money on it. There actually used to be a track um, on like the Seminole Miccosukee land, like heading down Alligator Alley. It was about an hour away. And believe it or not, there would be like 300, 400 people there on a weekend. So that was like the hotbed of dirt bike riding. Like that's when we had people from Orlando, like coming down from the weekend and like spending time and like camping out at that track. So that's when I saw how big it was. It's tough to see like being in Miami because you only go to the local track. My dad always didn't think like how big this industry was, but the more and more you get involved into it, you just like when you go to a race and like Angel Stadium sold out of 80,000, 70,000 people, you're like, okay, there's like a lot of people involved in this sport and there's a lot of money being spent. So it's definitely bigger than like we think.
Yeah. Well, even you look at like monster truck shows, and those
Yeah,
things,
exactly.
those things are sold out. And never
Yeah,
would you expect something like that to get sold out, but yet anytime I happen to like scroll past it on the television, they're always slam packed.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, so it's I mean it's like this core. very loyal audience, which as well is very good for like our marketplace because it's people are super passionate about the sport and are very their entire life outside of work per se is like riding dirt bikes or
Yeah.
riding ATVs or being involved in like a power sports industry.
Yeah. So is not obviously because I don't want to make anyone feel stupid, but MX is motocross, right?
Yeah, MX
Yeah.
is motocross.
And
So
that's dirt bike specific, obviously, right?
yeah, that's dirt bike specific.
But
Um,
have you branched out into like ATVs and other type of motorsports, or are you limited to just the dirt bikes?
yeah, so we've branched out into mountain bikes, got some like initial traction there as like a test audience. And now as we've grown, we've just had to push from sellers to like launch into other categories like beyond power, like beyond dirt bike riding, which is power sports,
Mhm.
because our user demographic, like if you ride dirt bikes, you probably ride a mountain bike or cycle or own an ATV or UTV. So why not come to one stop destination for like all things new and used power sports? So yeah, believe it or not, we've been working on category expansion. We should probably be launching in the next 2 3 weeks. So it's kind of been our Q2 roadmap. So we have like 5 days left to get it through the window and shipped. But yeah, right now we're just in dirt bikes, and we'll be launching into these other categories.
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt the episode, but I have to tell you about Robinhood. Robinhood allows you to start investing in stocks, ETFs, options, and cryptocurrencies, all commission free. I've been using Robinhood for about 5 years now and recently started using their Gold, which gives users 3% IRA match, 5% interest on uninvested cash, among many other benefits to help you guys achieve financial freedom. I'm not sponsored by Robinhood. This is just how much I believe in the product. And if you like the podcast and want to support, you can use the link in the description to receive anywhere from $5 to $200 in a free stock of your choice. All you have to do is link your bank account once you sign up. You don't even have to trade. Thanks, guys. Now back to the episode.
I was saying, are you gonna now start to compete with like Polaris, right? Like that's one of the big. But I guess they like so yeah. Who are your competitors? Because obviously, someone like Polaris, they sell the equipment, but is there really
Yeah.
any other?
In terms of competition, it's mainly like eBay, Facebook Marketplace, offer up like, and the e-commerce players in the space who will probably look at us as like competitors now. So as a general though, like we're a peer-to-peer marketplace, like that's our bread and butter. And so our biggest competitor is eBay. It is Facebook Marketplace. It is, an offer up in the world.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah.
And where where does that competitive advantage come from? Is it in fees? Is it in your marketing? How do
Yeah.
you
Once
set yourself up?
One's fees. So we're generally lower than eBay. Facebook's obviously free, but you're getting a worse experience. For us, like I tell everyone how to compare us. It's like eBay, you're walking into Walmart, right? Like you could get anything on eBay. It's not customer specific, like random things can pop up. For us, it's like you're walking into a Dick's Sporting Goods or an REI of the world where it's like, hey, I'm going in here. I know the people on this site or store are going to be knowledgeable about skis and snowboards. Same thing when you come to MX Soccer, you're buying from like that core audience. It's a experience built for the customer, and they're very passionate about this hobby or what they're involved in. So that's why they're going to come to our site. And a cool thing we have now is like shop with an expert. So if you're buying a product, you could speak with like a pro rider and be like, hey, like, what do you recommend? Or does this part help me in a way? And you can engage with them, get like real life experience, and that could help like with your shopping experience. So we're building an experience catered around our customer way more than like eBay could do it or Facebook could do it or these other sites could do it.
Yeah, because you're so niched that you can actually focus in on the product rather than
Exactly.
eBay.
So it's like, yeah, let's double down on our customer experience. Let's double down on like building the experience direct for our consumer. And that's like why I started MX Soccer. It's because, you know, I knew like what I wanted to filter for when like looking for boots or riding gears or dirt bike specific stuff. And that's kind of what we focused on. And now that we focused on it, done well at it, it's like allowed us now to expand into these other categories.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think UX, is so important, right? And
Yeah.
is it UX design? Is that or is that website? But UX is like user experience, right?
Yeah, user experience and then user interface. So like User
Gotcha.
experience, I think, is like the journey that you take a user through. User interface is like, yeah, the interface of the website. And I always get confused. Like my engineers always send me like a meme saying like, hey, this is UX, this is UI. I just call it UX UI. So
Yeah. No, but I think it's the world we live. Like nowadays, everything is so based on what the consumer finds easiest to use, operate, etc. And like you said, you look at platforms like Airbnb, and it's
yeah,
just completely captured the game because of how simple it is to operate.
exactly. And then they're known for like some of the best UX UI experiences like in the entire
Yeah.
industry. Like that's what they pride themselves on.
And even that has led to so many other, obviously you have like VRBO, have some of these other platforms. There's this new one called Boat Setter. I don't know if you've heard of that, but they're like the
Yeah, boat
Airbnb
setter,
boat
they're
rental.
yeah, they're out of Miami, another
Yeah.
marketplace. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, exactly. But again, it's like they find the need for it, and now it's like I couldn't even have told you where I would have looked to go rent a boat. It would have been your
exactly.
typical like Google search, and now they've
Yeah,
captured that entire market.
yeah. Nah, it's definitely yeah. There's this other one like Swimply, which is like if you have a pool, you could rent out your pool, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so there's a ton of like marketplaces being built in like certain categories that are massive and just making like that experience easier for both, you know, a consumer and a host. So
and it's so unique to see just even like Airbnb to VRBO, or like another one for the boats is Get My Boat, and
yeah,
that compared to Setter, and just to see the way different people kind of put their own twists on it, I think is very unique.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah. So what does a obviously entrepreneur, you don't have your typical 9 to 5, you don't really have your set hours. What does your day-to-day look like? How do you deal with, creating your own schedule? Obviously, you still got time to play indoor soccer, so can't
Yeah.
be too bad. So what does that look like?
No, I mean, look, some weeks are way busier than others. Some days are way busier than others. It's a mix of everything, right? Like that's the cool thing about it is every day is different, which I like. It's not like a 9 to 5 where I'm coming in, all right, doing the same thing every day. Being CEO, I kind of touch on everything. So data, financials, product, customer support, marketing. I would say my like strengths are marketing and product design. And then other than that, just like ideation around like, every week we have a support report and, seeing what our customers are having wrong the most, taking that, and then now thinking of new ideas to make it better. So yeah, it's a mix of everything. I can't like pinpoint, exactly like what a day today looks like. Like every day is different. But a lot of my days are spent around like product like roadmap planning, looking at data, understanding like what products we're building, the data we should look at, and then as well, marketing initiatives, like putting that in place, and then having Mitch who helps with like all of our marketing campaigns and product like design stuff like branding, take my ideas and like put them to paper. So yeah, it's a mix of everything. But if I would choose two buckets, it'd be marketing and product.
Yeah, nice. And how I guess how do you deal with not like how do you deal with being the boss, right? Like how, do you find yourself do you struggle with that, right? Like do you have to kind of have someone hold you accountable? Like obviously it is your business, so there is
Yeah.
of course your own internal motivation, but I feel like, people the world we're living in nowadays where people can work from home, they don't really have someone overseeing them. Like what tips would do you find helpful for yourself to be able to be successful?
Yeah, I think it comes down to organization and also like having people around you that you could trust. Where being that we're such a small team, like we can't be overseeing people so much. And I tell our team like communication is key. Like if you don't like what someone's doing, or call them out on it. Like if they're not producing, or if they're not getting their work done, like saying like, hey, like set deadlines. This needs to get done by this date. And if it's not done, like you're obviously not producing to a certain standard. So yeah, for us it's organization. Like we use an organization tool like for projects, and it's getting our team like all on the same page. Like use this one task management tool, put your tasks in there, hold yourself accountable. Like we're not here to babysit. And I always look at the quote like we're a professional sports team. The Reed Hastings from Netflix always says like, hey, you're your employees, you're a professional sports team. Like you're here to win a championship. You're not here to come short of that. And I tell everyone on a day-to-day basis, like in our meetings, it's like, hey, you're the point guard, you're the goalie, you know, or like same thing with soccer. It's like you all have to perform to a certain standard for the team to win. And it's in the same
Yeah.
thing in business. If you're all working towards that starting job, right? And if you're not performing to that starting job, then you're going to get cut from that starting job. So it's kind of that mentality, hold people accountable, you know, management, and as well like being the CEO, like motivating people to be excited about what they're doing. So it's definitely been a learning experience. Yeah, like going from me and Andrew working every day to now having, you know, a data person and more engineers, and like we just hired, you know, or like trying to get more engineers on the team, and yeah, learning about that and motivating people and putting them to work where they're really good at. So
I think that's important as well, playing off of people's strengths, and then like it's not going to feel like work to them, right? Like they're going to
exactly.
want to do it themselves, and then also, having them do their job, right? Like each person, like you said, on a sports team has a role that needs to be done, and you're not going to expect someone in engineering to help out on marketing, which sometimes you find, in small
Yeah.
businesses
Well,
because
it's
they
funny
just don't have.
because marketing actually involves engineering, right? So like we do certain things where like the entire team needs to work together, and it's like engineering needs to do this,
Yeah.
marketing needs to do this, and like they're pretty cohesive because like for engineering, it's like, hey, like that price drop thing I told you about, it's like we need to do certain things, and then they need to provide us with like data as well, and then we could present that to like a marketing thing. Or like when we're building certain customer segments, it's like the engineers need to give us like certain like data points or like add certain like filters to a product that we could use in like our marketing campaigns. So yeah, it's definitely a very cohesive team. Like the biggest thing for me was like learning to give up control on certain things,
Yeah.
so I could step back and like focus more on the business, and let people like do the roles that I used to do every day. So
I think it's important that you've been able to kind of be in every part of the business, kind of like a Swiss Army knife, because
exactly.
then you understand what needs to be done in each particular position. So kind of I know you just touched on it briefly, but how did that transition look like from kind of running everything within the business and then being able to be in a position where you can delegate, but yet you still kind of have some type of understanding and overseeing of the way that it needs to be done? How are you able to relinquish that control?
Yeah, I think it's just trusting people, right? Like I used to do customer support every day, and then you know you teach someone how to do customer support. You follow up with them like every couple of days, and then even today, like we have a support report every week where the engineers are coming in, I'm coming in, and our operations guys coming in and saying, "Hey, here are the biggest customer problems. Do we need engineering work to get these problems solved?" And then for me, like from a product design, like is it our fault or is it the customer's fault, right? So it's learning to like trust people and teach people with data now to like think big, right? Like I did this, like how do we now build it for scale with the same people, right? And putting systems in place to like reach those goals. So yeah, it's definitely like part of growing a business is like understanding how to manage people and task management, and I think that's the biggest thing. It's like put systems in place for scale, and I think we've been really good at it recently, where it's like we were all over the place, you know, a year ago, a year and a half ago, and now it's like, hey, everyone knows what needs to get done. Every Monday we have like our stand-up calls. You know, did you get this done? Did you get this done? Like this is what our week looks like. Get this stuff done, and we have a stand-up at the end of the week. Like, was it done? Was it not done? And we're working like pretty closely all week. So yeah, it's been a learning process, right? Like some people catch on better than others, but it's getting everyone to work in kind of like the same cycles is the most important.
Yeah, you seem to have a really natural knack for like understanding, what needs to be
Yeah.
done, and I'm curious, like, do you think it just comes natural? Like, obviously, you learn from mistakes and from failure, but is it just kind of something you always understood the way that like it needed to be done?
Yeah, I think it's more just like think big. You know, like I used to get like so caught in the day to day stuff where it's like, hey, let me just answer customers all day and like we do certain things where we're like looking at data and it's like, okay, like this morning we looked at something that dropped like our refund rate 2% on the marketplace. And it's like we put an engineering thing in place for like these order reminders, which was a direct result of that. So I think, yeah, I mean, it's been a learning experience for sure. Like you do, like in the early days, you do stuff that doesn't scale, right? And then I think Andrew's been a big like component of it, like Jack, our other engineer, is like a huge like component of it. And it's like take a step back, let's look at what's happening, especially our data guy now, Kurt. And it's like, let's look at data, you know, and then make decisions around data. Like you're not making decisions around, like what I think's good, what I think's bad. Which
Yeah,
in the early days of a startup, like you don't have enough data to make those decisions. So it's all part of that like journey, right? Like early days, you're just building, getting customer feedback, iterating. Where it's now, hey, we're big enough. Let's look at data, make decisions around data, and then see if those decisions were the right decisions. Um, so yeah, it's different at different scales, right? So
yeah. No, I think it's great that you have the wherewithal and almost like the humbleness to be like, listen, like I'm of course you're gonna have your own personal opinions, but being able
yeah,
to look objectively at what the numbers are telling you and then be able to adjust accordingly. Because too many people let their emotions get in the way, and then that's where disaster
yeah,
happens.
exactly.
So I mean, no, like I said, you have the knack, and obviously shout out to you. Forbes recognized you for that, and you got a pretty cool feature with them. So talk a little bit about how cool that was, and I mean, I must have felt pretty humbling, and then also, of course, kind of a not relief, but a sense of like, okay, like something I'm doing is working, and someone else is
Yeah.
recognizing that.
No, it's always cool because like we build something and like you're never like appreciative or like you never look back and like because you're always striving for like the next big thing, right? Like sometimes we have to sit back like in our quarterly reviews now and we're like, whoa, like we just got this done this quarter, like we've hit these goals, or like when we hit 1 million in sales for the first time, like I don't think I even remember celebrating. It's more just like, all right, what's next? Like the journey to like X amount in sales. So no, it's cool. Like when we got that article published in Forbes, like she loved our story and wanted to feature us. And I didn't even know like they were posting an Instagram of me like riding. So like I was on Instagram the one day and like people sent it to me. I'm what is going on? Like Forbes just posted us. So no, it's definitely cool to get like moto and dirt bikes like recognized by the outside world. So no, just continue like excited for the future and proud of like of everything that the team's built. It's pretty humbling to see like where we came from, like buying and selling in like a shitty office in Gainesville to a marketplace of over 200,000 users now. So um, yeah, it's pretty fascinating. Pretty like just to sit back some days and be like, hey, like all these products are like trading around the world. Like we're not touching anything, but we're like helping customers find what they're looking for. So yeah, it's sometimes like when you look back at it, it's definitely humbling and very cool. And like I still think we're just in the early days and we're just getting our stride right. Um, so yeah, definitely like exciting stuff.
Yeah, what's the company's 3, 5, 10 year, like what are those plans? Where do you see the long-term vision for MX Locker?
Yeah, so long term, like as I said before, is like we focused in on dirt bikes like as our niche. We're about to launch like power sports, so it's going to be interesting to see like how users adapt to it and how big like our addressable market becomes, right? So going from dirt bikes now to ATVs, UTVs, street bikes, like that market's massive. Um, so that's like near term goals. Um, Long term goals will be like partnering with big brands to use us as like their trade-in programs or like incentivizing users to like sell items on MX Soccer so they could buy new product. So if you want like the new pair of boots, like how do we sit as the middleman to like incentivize that and like allow users to like use us as like a GameStop trade-in program. So yeah, there's just still so much to build. We want to become like the biggest destination for power sports online. That's the goal, and just like become the easiest way to do that. So yeah, there's a lot to build, a lot to get after, but definitely like we're doing it, so it's cool to see it.
Yeah, I think it's, and obviously you're bringing awareness to the motorsports industry, which is so cool for people that, otherwise probably wouldn't have come across it. But I think even, a lot of the setups that, StockX has or eBay has, and even some of these other programs, right? You're like, I see what you're doing, and you've literally picked the best systems from all of these super successful companies and been able to,
Yeah,
implement it into your operation,
yeah,
which I think is yeah.
yeah. And we look at like all these, other marketplaces on a day-to-day basis, and it's like, what are they doing? What
Yeah.
are they releasing? Like, what are they doing right? What are they doing wrong? And like, some of our employees like use these other marketplaces to get feedback from them. So yeah, it's definitely been an interesting ride, and like being that I was exposed to like online payments early on, like I was able to see like what worked, what didn't, to like get that first iteration of MX Soccer out. So
Yeah, so we can clip this, right? So you can like put it as a tutorial for MX. I'm
yeah,
sure you already do, but walk me through, right? Like I'm a buyer and I go to
uh,
your website and let's say I'm looking for a pair of goggles or a helmet, right?
yeah.
What does that process look like? Do I just purchase it? Do I have to wait for it to be verified? Like, does it get sent to your warehouse first? Kind of walk me through that UX and what that process is.
Yeah, so as a buyer, like our protections we have in place is, you could buy an item. Like we're not verifying any items. So we have a rating system, we have a seller verification process. So essentially, as a seller, you have to verify certain things to get approved to sell on the marketplace. As a buyer, you're completely by MX Soccer knowing like, hey, payment isn't released to the seller until the item's delivered. And when the item is delivered, you as a customer have 48 hours to notify us if anything's damaged or wrong with the item you got. So that's kind of like the hold safe we have on our marketplace. We adopted it from a lot of other marketplaces online, being saying, hey, now you as a consumer, you could buy an item, get the item. If it doesn't come as described, you can open a ticket with us. Money isn't released to the seller. And if something goes wrong, we could refund you right away and you could return that item back to the seller. So you're super protected. As a seller on our marketplace, like we're the ones dealing with fraud, we're the ones handling payment, we're the ones providing you with shipping labels. So it's a pretty,
Nice.
foolproof experience for both the buyer and seller side.
Yeah, it just makes it so easy. Like it just helps
Yeah.
streamline the entire process, which is great. And do you have any like competitors specifically in the motorsports world? Like obviously you have the big names, right? But like
Yeah.
where was this before? Obviously you created something, but where
Yeah.
was this before?
No, it was eBay, which I think we actually have like better listings than eBay now. We have a lot of sellers from eBay actually like reaching out to us saying, hey, can you like export all of our listings to your marketplace? And we're like, we're working on something. But yeah, it was forums, Facebook groups. Um, that's it really. So it was kind of like, hey, I saw it happening. Like, Grail saw it happening on Facebook groups on sneakers. Like I saw it happening on forums, on dirt bike websites and groups on Facebook. So I'm like, let me just build a better experience. And, I've always doubled down on that. And I think that's, proven to the success of the marketplace.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. You gave me the full rundown, the full scope. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I kind of had what it was before, but now to really understand kind of the ins and outs, I think it's super inspiring and just be able to literally, like you said, create it from a blank piece of paper, right? Like it
Yeah,
just shows that if you have the wherewithal, you can really create whatever you want.
exactly. Exactly. It's having the right people around you as well. Like timing was a big thing. And then as well, just having the determination to do it. Like a lot of people will say, like my dad, a lot of the time is like, how are you going to build this into a big business? And, is dirt bikes big enough? And, you know, everyone's like, oh, you can't like have your passion as your, actual
Yeah.
business in life. And, it's proving them wrong, showing like, hey, this is a big industry. So it's cool to like combine a passion and business into one. But yeah, like I always tell people, like put a product out there, get customer feedback. Like there's no point in building in stealth unless it's like a super secretive idea where you think a competitor is like really going to have a competitive, like you'll have a competitive advantage of doing it. But yeah, it's back to the early days of MX Soccer, like putting a product out there, getting customer feedback, understanding what needs. Is there a need for this, right? Like, should I actually go invest, and hire Andrew to build this? I would have never known. So, yeah, it's been a cool experience, cool journey. Yeah, and still building every day. So,
Yeah, it's gonna be nuts. Maybe we'll do it again in a year and
yeah,
see kind of where things are at, how it's progressed, and just and really the thing is, right, is like of course you are specific to MX, but really like you're just you're a middleman. You're an
yeah,
intermediary to these people, and you could have the same one item that gets bought and sold 20 times, and it just
exactly.
shows that really like it's that unlimited amount of uh I guess business and opportunity that you're just kind of getting yourself in the middle of it and getting in the way
Yeah,
of that flow of dollars.
exactly. No, exactly. Yeah, no, it's cool to see. Cool to see like what categories do the best, and just understand like what consumers are purchasing and what they're looking for. So,
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Well, man, this was amazing. I mean, I want to be respectful of your time. I feel like we kind of
yeah,
covered everything pretty well, kind of got the whole, background. I guess plug yourself. Where can people find you? Where's the best way to connect, get started, etc., whatever.
yeah. I'm not very active on Instagram. I would say at best. I try to stay active on LinkedIn. So if anyone wants, just look me up on LinkedIn, shoot me a connection. That's probably best place to connect. Um, yeah, like post updates there, post some stuff we're building from time to time. So yeah, LinkedIn's best place to contact.
Gotcha. And obviously just mxlocker.com.
Yeah,
Um,
MXSoccer.com, MX Soccer in both app stores. Download our app, give us a review.
yeah.
We appreciate it. So goes a long
Yeah,
way.
we'll plug all the links in the description, and hopefully get some followers to
Sweet.
utilize that. And yeah, kind of what listen, I appreciate you taking the time and sharing and being so open. And we're a small podcast, but I like to be
Yeah,
able to share knowledge, and obviously kind of getting to connect through our mutual connections is always kind of fun and unique, and always really enjoy it, man.
yeah, perfect. No, thanks for having me. It was good to connect past the soccer field. So we'll continue the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And hopefully, yeah, hopefully the podcast is still around in a year, and maybe we
Yeah,
do a catch up and see where it goes.
perfect. Perfect. No, I'm down for
Awesome.
it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Amoils. Thanks so much,
Cool.
man.
Thanks, Michael.